How did 9 Russian hikers lose their lives in the Dyatlov Pass Incident? On February 1st, 1959, 9 Russian hikers set up a tent across the Urals and settled in for the night. Hours later, all 9 escaped the safety of the tent and perished in the icy, snowy conditions. Some party members died of hypothermia, while others were seriously injured that attributed to their death. The Dyatlov Pass case, as it was known, inspired so many dark and often outlandish possible explanations. Before diving into the main theories, let's consider the facts. Initially, the group consisted of 10 very experienced hikers, all of whom, with one important exception, were students and recent graduates of the Ural Polytechnic. The exception was Semyon Zolotaryov, who joined the group at the last moment and was clearly older than the others at the age of 37. At the beginning of the trek, one member of the group dropped out due to illness. The others continued to photograph each other's antics and wrote journals expressing their excitement for the adventure ahead. "I wonder what awaits us on this journey," wrote one. "What are we up against?" Weeks later, a search party sent to look for the missing hikers found the remains of their tent on the side of a mountain called Kholat Syakli. Inside were walking boots, clothes and maps, and food that was visible to eat. The side of the tent was cut open from the inside, a sign of how desperate they were to get out. The tracks indicated that the group had left the tent without shoes. The bodies that lay beside the extinguished fire at the foot of a nearby tree were 21-year-old Yuri Doroshenko and 23-year-old Yuri Krivonishchenko. Both apparently froze to death, but they also had burns and several scrapes. Not far away in the snow lie the bruised bodies of the group's leader, 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov and 22-year-old Zinaida Kolmogorova. It turned out that both died trying to get back to the tent. A few days later, the body of 23-year-old Rustam Slobodin was also found. He had a fractured skull. The rest of the hikers were found in a ravine near the shelter they were trying to carve out of the snow. 23-year-old graduate Nikolai Thibaut Brignol had a fractured skull, while 24-year-old Alexander Kolovatov had a deformed neck and missing eyebrows. The oldest hiker, Semyon Zolotaryov, and 20-year-old Lyudmila Dubinina had their chests crushed and several ribs broken. Both were missing eyes, and Lyudmila's tongue was missing. The criminal investigation was conducted by a prosecutor named Lev Ivanov, but it came to a mysterious conclusion. The cause of their death, the report said, was an overwhelming force that the hikers could not overcome. The Mansi's theory, Soviet officials initially suggested that the indigenous Mansi of the region may have killed Dyatlov's party. The idea that the hikers were killed because they had strayed into sacred land, or perhaps as part of a shamanic ritual, persisted for some time. There was much talk of the existence of a Mansi chum, or tent near to the hikers' tent, and they often saw Mansi signs on the track. "I wonder what they write about," Zinaida Kolmogorova noted in her diary, while one of her hiking companions, the identity is unclear, also wrote that Mansi writing appears on the trees. This was debunked as a baseless theory based on a misunderstanding of Mansi culture and rituals. And if they were indeed rounded up and murdered, why were the bodies found in different places, some more injured than others? The theory of espionage. 2 members of Dyatlov's group were the subject of special speculation. Why did 37-year-old World War II veteran Semyon Zolotaryov join this group of young students and graduates? Does it also matter that Yuri Krivonishchenko helped clean up a radioactive leak at a secret Soviet nuclear facility a few years back, an event that has since been compared to the Chernobyl disaster? One theory is that Zolotaryov and Krivonishchenko, and possibly a third hiker, worked for the KGB and joined Dyatlov's expedition to meet with CIA agents in the Urals. The Russians had to photograph American agents during the transfer of radioactive materials and fake nuclear secrets. The theory is that CIA men caught wind of what was happening, causing a fight and then the massacre of Dyatlov's party. The UFO, military weapons theory. In 1990, Lev Ivanov, the man who led the initial investigation into the case, published a sensational article in which he claimed he had been ordered to censor some of his key findings. In particular, the unusual carbon marks on the trees near the bodies, which Ivanov believed confirmed the source of the heat ray that was deliberately aimed at some helpless hikers. His article also claimed that in February, there were reports of globes of light floating over the Urals and other strange phenomena. Ivanov does not mince words, saying that based on the collected evidence, the role of UFOs in this tragedy was quite obvious. Whether these supposed UFOs were of foreign origin or were Soviet experimental weapons depends on which version of the theory you believe. The Yeti theory. The idea that the Yeti killed the group is based on some questionable evidence. The first is a photo taken by a hiker showing a dark humanoid figure seemingly lurking next to a tree. But is this terrifying image from the annals of cryptozoology or just a blurry image of another hiker? Another article cited by pro-Yeti theorists is a parody journal written by hikers during the expedition that contained the line "Yeti lives near Mount Ortorton in the northern Urals." Although clearly intended as a joke, other stories in the parody magazine were exaggerated accounts of what the hikers actually did. According to this theory, the satirical entry about the Yeti was inspired by an actual sighting of the creature, which followed and eventually killed the entire group. The flat avalanche theory. The most widely accepted theory is also the most mundane. The group escaped from the tent due to a slab avalanche and then succumbed to the harsh conditions. A slab avalanche is where a compacted block of snow slides down a slope as the weaker layer of snow below it gives way. According to this theory, a combination of factors caused the catastrophic avalanche, including winds from the mountains, known as katabatic winds, and the weakening of the snow on the mountain during tent pitching. The idea is that when the avalanche hit, the group jumped out of the tent in panic, and some of them were seriously injured in the collision, explaining the broken ribs of Zolotaryov and Dubinina, for example. Those who escaped with minor cuts and scrapes helped others escape what they believed to be a full avalanche danger zone, only for the entire group to perish from extreme cold or injury. Alternatively, all 9 hikers could have made it out of the tent without serious injury, which would explain why there were no tracks in the snow to indicate that people were helped or dragged. After that, 2 died of cold in a tree, 3 froze to death trying to get back to the tent, and 4 more died in the ravine, some seriously injured or killed trying to create a snow shelter. The horrific facial damage may have been caused by animal waste and decomposition. Many Dyatlov commentators are skeptical, and the finer details of the plate avalanche theory are hotly debated. Ultimately, however, this is perhaps the most likely explanation for what happened to the scientists on that cold, dark night in 1959. So why not get comfortable, pour yourself a drink and choose one of our stories to listen to? Thanks for dropping by. I'll see you in the next chapter.